Welcome to the next episode of the After Hours podcast. In today's episode, Frankie and Daniel talk to John Wabeck about his experience with The Butcher on the Rye, as well as the rest of his restaurants. So sit back, get comfortable, and grab a cold one with the boys for another After Hours interview.
What are some other drinks that you enjoy besides gin and tonic?
I'm a wine guy, so usually when it gets to be dinner time, we'll open something nice. Right now it's crazy hot in Pittsburgh, so I drink a lot of white. Not embarrassed to say that I had a glass of Black Box Sauvignon Blanc just to get the party started.
Okay.
We drink so much wine in the house, like we'll chew through the cellar in a week if we don't, have something like that. So it's just nice and refreshing, and and then with Butcher, when I had to get more involved in it, that was the one place that I really didn't have to deal with because Chris McKenzie, the bar manager there, was fantastic. And there was so many other things that I had to deal with that Butcher would take care of itself. And then when he left in November, I had to go in. And I know a lot about whiskey and stuff, but not to the extent that those bartenders did. And I was like, I can't go in there as the beverage director of the company and get smoked on whiskey with these guys. So, I've been paying more attention to it and usually finish the night with something Irish or, I got a couple proper bottles of bourbon at home now. So it's been that, just ice cube and have a couple of them and go to sleep.
There you go. And, the best way to learn about a drink is, obviously you got to drink it a couple times. So I definitely feel where you're coming from there. And, I wouldn't mind learning about some whiskey to surprise myself.
We got another hour and a half to try to get some teaching going on too. I mean, the thing is with whiskey, drinking is important, but this whole, and maybe we'll cover it, but this whole, master sommelier or whatever they're calling it now, I think the master's gone, but that whole thing it's more of like, if you learn the process and why things taste like they do, that helps to do that as well. So, reading about, single pot still Irish, I think, Francisco, when I talked to you a couple of last week or 2 weeks ago, that was something that I'm super into and probably always will be. And just the whole process behind it is like, oh, okay, I get it. And then you taste it and like, okay, I understand stylistically why this is, because of the production method. And it's pretty cool. I can certainly my job to geek out on anything that has alcohol in it.
So you are part of the Richard Deschamps food group or restaurant group, and you are the beverage director. How did you get into the industry, and what attracted you to Pittsburgh?
In high school, I think I was 15. I started out as a dishwasher at a pizza place and realized that, while dishwashing, look, it's, I have much respect for anyone in a restaurant business. And this isn't meant to demean them, but it's like, you wash dishes good, you get moved up. So I was like, now I'm making pizza with a bunch of my friends. And it was like, it was a free for all. Went to college for music. I was like music composition major or something. Screwed around way too much. My parents were like, maybe you should take some time and then figure out what you want to do. So if you're 18 or 19 years old, you work in restaurants because that's what you do. So I was in the kitchens basically, and decided to, hey, I want to take this seriously because I like it. Plus, you get to stay up until 4 o'clock in the morning doing college shit. Went to culinary school, got kind of hit the wine bug really badly when I was there. At that point in the early 90s or mid 90s when I graduated culinary school, there wasn't a lot of wine jobs, especially if you didn't have any experience. So I just went back in the kitchen. Was always into wine, and then moved to Napa and met a couple people. And all of a sudden they're like, well, you should take these, quarter master sommelier exams or tests or classes or whatever. So I did, got more into beverage. And I think in 2008, I switched over full time. Worked at a couple super high-end places in DC around the market crash of 2008. So you can imagine how fun that was in a high-end restaurant. I think in 2012 or 2013, my girlfriend's sister got pregnant. She's going to Pitt or graduated. She's like a PhD from Pitt now. She's like, oh, I want to go around my niece. Do you want to move to Pittsburgh? And I wasn't going to do it because of my hockey allegiance, but I did. And, I was originally a general manager at Spoon, where we had like this giant gin list, I think of like 80 or 85 gins. It would be fun to do that too, but I don't know if Spoon it's still closed right now. Who knows what's going to happen. And I left there after, just because I was like, I don't want to do restaurants anymore. Let's figure something out. And I was like, saving my pennies. I got time to do, just to chill. And Tolga Sebdik, one of the owners of the RDRG, called and said, hey, we want you to do this wine list. All you got to do is wine, train the staff, and, work the floor a couple nights. Because of how I am is like, I was addicted to it. Is like, it's Pittsburgh and like you're actually selling wine, because that's that was a big challenge at the time. So I was there all the time. And about a year later, he's like, hey, why don't you just work with us? Because I was consulting. So about a year and change, year and a half, maybe a little more, became full-time beverage director. And it was just like, basically training and teaching the bar leads how to do financial stuff and things like that. And then here we are having a podcast about Butcher, which is cool because, Butcher was the one place that I didn't have anything, I didn't really need to do much. But then, now I love it. It's, there's the whiskey wall of 750 or 800 whiskeys. And, it's basically people going there and they just like, I need this because I can't find it. And it doesn't matter what it costs. So that's the cool part. That's a really cool part about Butcher is that.
Absolutely. So I have 2 questions that spurred from that. One being, how did the 2008 financial crisis, how does that compare to the 2020 COVID outbreak from the restaurant industry perspective? That's one question we have not asked any of our guests. So
good question.
We would love to have a little insight on that if you don't mind sharing.
The restaurant that I was at the time was called Inox, and we only made it 18 months. And it was like larger than life. The build out was crazy amount of money. The talent was there. Everything was in place. Like, this restaurant is too big to fail. And, we were in Tyson's Corner surrounded by Deloitte and Touche and, Capital One and all these like giant corporate accounts. And, we had an 800 label wine list that, let's go. That restaurant was, predicated on, the success was predicated on a lot of private dining. I would hear stories about these guys from like Cap One that would come in and just like, we don't care what it costs, let's go. And then when that crash happened, like 3 weeks after we opened, I think, I don't really remember, none of that stuff was happening. So we're stuck with, hundreds of thousands of dollars of wine inventory that just isn't moving because, you can't spend, the big companies couldn't spend. And if, a rival company saw you like spending big, they're like, well, I guess, you guys are doing okay. That was big companies. And I think that's where it felt. Now it's like, it's everybody. We don't go out. Like we got takeout last night. That's our first time in 3 weeks that we've done anything that's outside of like buying groceries and cooking. I don't know to what extent is going to come out of this. You can't go to restaurants right now. It's not 100% safe. And, are you really going to have fun there if, you got servers waiting on you in a mask? I don't know. I don't know the back half of the answer because, this is still new. The economy seems to be like it's coming back, but, I think for the day-to-day restaurant, like, are you guys going out? I mean, I'm not even considering it.
So we live in a college town. I literally live a minute and a half from the University of Toledo. And I can say that within my friend group and with people like other students, people are going out. And like I said, Ohio was one of the more liberal states when it came to the regulations they placed on the food and beverage industry, specifically bars and the occupancy rates, gloves, masks, all of that was pretty lenient, I would say. So yes, we have seen a lot of people in my friend group, at least, that are going out. I don't know about you, Dan.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is just you have to like wear a mask whenever you do go out, and then it's like going from place to place as like you just have to wear a mask.
Well, that's the thing too, though, is that there has been some bars that have been reprimanded and given citations for not following the proper protocols, which would be, over 50% occupancy rate, or not having all of the staff adhere to masks or gloves. Again, those are one in the dozen. I would say most places that are pretty lenient don't get reprimanded. So that's just my take on it personally.
Yeah, I mean, the whole contact tracing from the spike in Pittsburgh, people have mentioned a couple bars. Oh yeah, I was there, and it's like we went from 2 weeks ago there was 0 cases, and then there was 233 today, which that's 233 cases given like Florida right now. That's not crazy, but that's exponential growth. Is like what's it going to be tomorrow? And so to answer your question about how this affects, is like I don't even think we're halfway through this yet. And it's affecting, everyday people instead of like giant corporations where, that restaurant was predicated on, private dining from Capital One or Deloitte or whoever else it was, Raytheon or whatever. Mm-hmm. And now it's like, none of our restaurants are really designed for that. So like Poulet Bleu, our French place, it's a little neighborhood place, and you take 50% of the capacity out, it's not great. And that's not, we don't take tables of larger than 6, in the best of times. And so there's that whole corporate dining thing isn't going to happen. And, that's the difference, at least what I'm seeing now. And it could be because it's DC versus Pittsburgh. I don't know. I can't answer that just because I don't have enough evidence, Yeah, 2008 is like overnight. It's like, oh, market shit to bed. What are you going to do? The restaurant where I was at closed. Because it just couldn't survive without any of that. But right now, it's like I don't even waste energy trying to figure out a way out just because I don't think it's presented itself yet. Until there's a vaccine or a proper treatment, is like we're kind of like going to be doing this same dance.
I know Frankie was talking about ways of just having this be over as soon as possible. And so we had the kind of like half-assed thing we did in March where things were like quote unquote shut down, but you still had a lot of things open. We were talking about like, what if you just straight out everything is done for a month? You had like a week in advance, like, okay, here, grab your food, cans food, your cans of beans and all that fun stuff, and then just stay in your house for the full month, and then just go from there.
So this was a conversation that took place last night in our office. It was me, Dan, and 3 other guys in the office last night. And so what I said was, I'd rather do a quarantine right for 4 to 6 weeks and do it right the first time instead of doing what we did from March to May, which was just half-assed it, where people are still not really abiding by the masks. People that are what are they called? Essential employees that really aren't essential employees that are working at like ice cream shops. I think if we were...
Ice cream is essential. Get out of here.
Right. But if we took it serious, I think we'd be good.
Yeah, I think we would, because 14 days where there's like a possibility of getting infected?
Yeah.
Or something like that, yeah.
That's just my opinion on it. I think if we were really strict for just, 4 weeks and just hopefully eradicate the disease within, 1%, spread rate. So, or infection rate, I guess. That would be my ideal scenario.
I'd have fun with it too. I would be on League of Legends all day, every day. It'd be a great time.
I'm prepared whiskey-wise for that. So,
that's good.
That's what happens.
And John, you mentioned that you were from, the DC area, and you're having some hard feelings about going to Pittsburgh because of hockey. I'm a big hockey fan, and
that's Ovechkin o'clock, right?
That is Ovi, that is Nick Backstrom and Carlson, who's having a career year. But I'm a big hockey guy, and
everyone's favorite Tom Wilson. Look, I wasn't going to do it. I've met a couple of the Pens. They're great guys, and it's they know where I'm from. And sometimes we talk a little shit, but it's respectful. They're people. And it's just weird. Like Pittsburgh is weird. It's like DC is crazy about their sports, especially the Redskins. But Pittsburgh is like, I was like, holy shit, this is crazy. But since I've lived here, I kind of don't pay much attention anymore. I mean, especially during hockey season, I do, but I've never been a huge football fan. I've never been a huge baseball fan. Everyone's like, are you a Steelers fan at least? I'm like, yeah, I mean, I like Tomlin a lot. I just football, it's Pittsburgh is a sports town for sure. And, I just keep it to myself and keep respectful. When DC did win the cup, I wasn't parading around in my Ovechkin shirt or wearing red or whatever, I was respectful, but, I don't even think I said anything. I was like, I've waited my whole life for this to happen. They win the cup, and I was like, okay, what do I do now? I just went to bed. I was like, what should I drink? What should I do? And I was just sitting here like, I was so superstitious that I don't watch games on TV, like, because when I do, they lose. So I was like, I was watching Game 5 of the Stanley Cup Finals with my team that I've been a fan of since like the first season. They won the cup, and I watched it via Twitter, and then I went to bed. And I woke up the next day, and I was like, yeah, you know what? Nothing changed. I'm still the same person, It was like, yeah. So I was like, yeah, sports, it's cool.
I wish I was as calm as you. Because I'm a big Ovechkin guy, and the other guy that we work with, he was in the office last night when we had the COVID talk. His name's Joe, and he's from Pittsburgh. That guy rocks Pittsburgh sports with like the most pride that I've ever seen in somebody. And I'm from Michigan. Obviously, the Dead Wings aren't doing too hot, so I've been following Ovi.
My boy Mike Green.
Yeah, he's a little washed up now, but he's all right.
He did a lot for the team when he was there, when Young Guns or whatever it was called. But it's I can live going to Penn. Like I went to a Penn's, I think it was Penn's Blue Jackets game last year. It's just weird going to a hockey game where it's like I just want to watch hockey. I don't want to, I can't. And I was probably 60% Pens, 40% Blue Jackets, which is weird that, anything would be a majority Pens, but, I can stomach them. The rivalry it's still there, but it's not as, back in the day as like when Lemieux was playing and when Crosby first started, is like me living in this town, I was like, there's no way that's going to happen. Was going to give up the 10-year relationship or whatever that I had. I was like, nope, I can't do it. But, and Pittsburgh is cool, DC is cool, Pittsburgh's cool. There's a lot of challenges with buying booze in Pennsylvania, but, it's not bad. It's a cool city until 2 weeks ago. It was like super safe during all this. It's weird that you would not move somewhere because of a sports allegiance, but,
I believe it. But when I was, I was younger. This was probably 8 or 9 years ago. I had went to Washington, D.C. with some of my family and extended family, some cousins and stuff. And we were down there just having a good time. And this is when the Verizon Center was in its peak. And I was like, guys, like let's just go to a hockey game. And everyone just like looked at me weird. Nobody in my family really likes hockey, not to the degree that I do. So we go, and this was against the Arizona Coyotes. I'll never forget it. This is when Oliver Ekman-Larsson first joined the league. He scored a goal that night, but Capitals took it home, I think 4-1. And ever since then, I've just been a big Washington fan. But that's not for hockey. We'll get back to the regularly scheduled program at this point. Butcher in the Rye, you said it's had a great impact on you and your career, and you on a personal level with what you're starting to drink more. It is pretty well ingrained in the Pittsburgh culture. Do you think that it could work in other areas of the United States or even abroad, like a Butcher in the Rye type of style owned by the same management?
I think so. I mean, it's a tiny restaurant. I think it's only like 70 seats. And then the investment is in that whiskey wall. Toga especially is like, hey, buy this. I'm like, are you sure? He's like, no, just buy it. So there's always there's always Pappy there and stuff like that. And people are willing to, you just can't find it. How that list is curated, I mean, it doesn't matter if it's in New York. And to be honest with you, without the restrictions of the PLCB, the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board in New York, I think it might even be more successful. Toronto, having seen Toronto's booze, procurement. I mean, it's more restrictive than Pennsylvania is. When I was there in October last year.
Yep.
So it might be a little limited there, but London, I think it would be great too. But London would probably, I bet, if we were to do it in New York, it's probably 50% bourbon. There's a ton of rye, and then there's a good amount of Scotch and Irish. In Toronto, I don't know if it would work there just because I don't know if you can get all that stuff. You might have to have a ton of Canadian whiskey, which there are good producers of it. I do drink my share of Crown Royal, but I understand where Crown falls in place of like world-class whiskey. High level Crown is tip top. I'm not being disparaging about that. But regular old Crown Royal is like, it's fine. London probably would be more Scotch and Irish just because of the proximity to that. So I think the whiskey mix would be changed, but I think just the look of it and the service and the menu, I think it could work in a lot of places. As long as you would have access to the whiskey, the food is, it's kind of luxury comfort food. I think that works. I think that works everywhere.
Mm. And you had touched on the restrictions that are in place for Pennsylvania. We've talked to a couple bar owners from Ontario, the LCBO, very restrictive north of the border in terms of the supply chain side of how they accumulate their alcohol, and then also the purchasing power that is held by the government. We have not talked to any bar owners or bar operators from Pennsylvania. Do you want to shed some light on that for other people that might not know about Pennsylvania law when it comes to alcohol?
I mean, it's a little more expensive to sometimes a lot more expensive. It's kind of hard to explain exactly how it works. There's a lot of people that don't want to deal with the PLCB. They control liquor and wine. Beer is separate. And there's just things that aren't available because there might not be enough quantity to deal, because it's got to be statewide. And say Virginia is like, I'm a supplier that deals with the DC area. That's it. If it's there, it's there. But if someone in like Blacksburg, Virginia wants it, it's like, well, you don't have to sell it to them. But in Pennsylvania, you legally have to sell it to them. So, if there's a tiny allocation of some whiskey, it's either going to be prohibitively expensive, or it's going to be, or you're just not going to be able to find it. The higher end power stuff is like, it just goes away for like 6 months at a time. And it's like, the John's Lane is like classic, one of the best Irish whiskeys that you can, easily find, or hopefully easily find. And it just goes away for 6 months at a time. So trying to curate a giant whiskey list, bourbons too, is like Pappy, we have available via a lottery that the PLCB runs. And if you don't win it, then you don't get any. And there's, 100,000 people vying for 1,000 bottles. I'm paraphrasing these numbers, but it's kind of like that. It's like, it should be easier, but, it's not. And I don't know if it's going to change just because there's too much money at stake right now.
What is one thing that, something that's unique about Butcher the Rye that you don't really get anywhere else?
It's a world-class whiskey list. I don't know many bigger. I know that Jack Rose in DC had a bigger whiskey list, but I don't know what Bill's going to do with that, because I know he was allegedly selling a lot of that at retail just to keep the lights on, during all of this. The staff, the bartenders at Butcher are crazy knowledgeable about whiskey. For me, that's the thing is like, if you have a list like that, but you don't have anyone to sell it, what good is it, So I think for me at Butcher is like, especially the bar team there, the whole staff in general, but the bar team is like, hey, I want a bourbon that's like this. Okay, here's 5, and do them in a 1 ounce pour if you want to do that. So, I think that is, that's what sets us apart, because at some point, you can have 20 restaurants can have the same whiskey list, but if they're not trained for it, I think that, you would start to see a little hierarchy. And that's, these guys take that stuff really, really, really seriously. And, that's why I enjoy working there as much as I do at Poulet, because of being a wine guy.
Well said. We've established now that Butcher and the Rye is one of the premier places in PA for whiskey consumers and people that are a fan of dark spirits. Let's touch on the other restaurants that are within the food group that you are a part of, which is Richard Deshawn's restaurant group. Just high overview, one to two words about each restaurant or each establishment and what they specialize in.
Poulet Bleu, French place, classic French bistro, great wine lists, pork and beans, barbecue and beer. Taco is fusion, like Asian and Mexican. We saw a lot of tacos, obviously, with a name. And then a giant, I think 400 was the last count of agave spirits. So a ton of tequila, but also a ton of mezcal, which is something that I'm pretty passionate about as well. What other places? Meat and Potatoes is fun. It's a gastropub, so the food is great. Big lusty flavors. You have a 20 label beer list, so it better be good. You have a 50 label whiskey list, you better be good. And the wine list is tiny, so it better be good. That's a challenge. What else do we have? Fish Nor Fowl, which is a play on, I guess, something that happened in Congress in the 1800s. Like, it basically means that we do whatever we want. We do whatever we want. The last menu that we did before the COVID got us was, big time pasta, big time Italian wine. But when we reopen, it could be, who knows? It's just like, let's do this now. Chef Rick Deschamps is he's super creative, so he gets really impatient with stuff, and then he's like, okay, let's change it. He doesn't like to stand still, so it's fun being around him because he's so creative, and I think of myself to be pretty creative, but he's like all over the place with it. And it's pretty cool to be around because it pushes me to think out of the box as well. I think that's all 6 restaurants. I think I touched on them all. There's 2 more that's going to open. Gaijin, which is going to be allegedly opening in July, but COVID willing. That's going to be kind of like a sushi raw place. Loud, couple Japanese drinks, some highballs, a bunch of sake, and then Coupe de Ville, which is going to be a southern, we built a bowling alley in this restaurant. So that's going to be a bunch of beer and like fried chicken and stuff like that. That should be opening soon too, but who knows what's going to happen with COVID.
Yeah, it's pretty unique to have one restaurant group or one food group that can tackle, I guess, the different markets, which would be the ethnicities or like the cultures of different foods. I mean, like you said, you have sushi, you have French, you have some place that's specifically luxury, meats and whiskey, Hispanic, you have Southern, and I did not realize that the person that's orchestrating all of the menus for this is one person. Very impressive, but also how does that transform your game in terms of being well-versed in multiple, spaces when it comes to drinks?
How I approach this is, what's the most important thing about each restaurant? Poulet is the wine list, so I would do that. A Butcher obviously is a whiskey wall, so that's my main focus on that. The bar, at each place, I tend to let, as far as the bar staff will take it, let them be creative about cocktails. There's a couple places that just through attrition or financial or whatever, I have to do the cocktail list, and I'm fine to do that, but I prefer that the bar staff does it because they're the ones that are selling it to the guests. So, something like Butcher is like, hey guys, those are great. Let's stick with them. That's perfect. And I'm at Butcher, I do most of the procurement for the whiskey menu, but then administrative for the cocktail list. because there's, 6 or 7 bartenders there that are extremely passionate and extremely skilled at this stuff. And why would I tell them, no, we're doing this, because that's going to stifle them. And let's be honest, they make drinks as good as I do. So why would I get in the way of that?
Do you have a personal favorite meal out of all the restaurants?
I would probably want to eat at Poulet the most, but I won't go there because I spend the most time there. And my personality is like, I wouldn't have fun. I'd be like, this, what's going on with this? And it's just my personality. So I'd be like, I can't have fun there. The last time I went to any of the restaurants, which I notoriously don't go to restaurants I work at, just because it's not fun, because it's work. The last time, some friends of mine were moving to Santa Cruz. So we went to taco, had a bunch of apps and a bunch of mezcal, and then went to meat and potatoes and a dinner and a bunch of wine. And that was it was fantastic. But, it's one of those things, like, I don't know if I'd be able to relax and have fun at those places. Just because I'm going to be critical. That's my nature. And,
That's a pretty common theme amongst people that we've talked to on the show, or, just going out on a night, always bullshit with the bartenders or with the management. And that's one thing they always say is that they don't really, when they're not working, they don't really visit their establishment too much. They would rather visit, someplace on the road or someplace from their hometown or something like that when they go out for the night, just because, I don't know, it's just like a reoccurring theme. I guess they just don't want to be at the place that they work, right? I mean, they want to separate their personal life from their work life, which is totally understandable.
It's invariable. It's variable is a stupid word. That's not the right word, but it's all the time is like, I get phone calls. It's like, if I get a phone call while I'm at the restaurant, it's like, okay, how fun is this? Yeah. And we're both like, at that point, like Melissa and I both are like, she's in the ice cream business. She gets a shit ton of phone calls all the time. It's like, it's something that this is career wide. This isn't, in Pittsburgh or whatever. It's just like, I don't want to go to places that I work because, and then there's the deal with like, if all this, like, say if we go out to dinner and it's like pretend date night, not that we ever have date night, but, and we're just trying to spend time with each other. Like, how much of that staff's going to come over and then talk to you? It's like, now you're hijacking my time. Plus we're like homebodies. We just want to stay home with a dog.
I feel that. So when you make edits, additions, or you omit something from the menu of one of your establishments, what is the main reason behind, menu changes, I guess, within the food group that you're a part of?
It could be, drinks wise, it could be seasonal. Hey, this is a super, like a Black Manhattan. I don't want to be drinking Black Manhattans right now if it's 95 degrees out. That's an obvious reason. One is like, okay, we tried this, we're all behind it, and it doesn't sell. We have a month's worth of data. Let's pull it. Or, for me is I don't like signature this or signature that, because I think it's like, if you have a signature cocktail, you've made it 1,000 times as a bartender, you're not, it just is what it is. And I think it starts to lose its edge after that. And that, when I was still cooking, I would never have a dish that would be on for more than a week or two, because like, at some point it's just like you do it by rote and it just doesn't have the excitement that it used to. So for me, it's like, always trying to push people is like, let's change. Within reason. It's like, if you blow up your whole cocktail menu every day, you're going to have some shit drinks on there. But, just organic is like, hey, I'm getting sick of this one. Let's work on some stuff. And they'd be like, that's great. Cool. Let's put it on. That's kind of how I approach it. And that's been whether it's front of the house or back of the house, kitchen or front. Right. Like I said, it's like each place is different. Meat and potatoes is more of a static menu out of necessity because, people have been going there for the 8 or 10 years that it's been open and they want stuff. When we first opened post-COVID, that the cocktail menu doesn't change much. And we're like, let's cut it in half because we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what staff we're going to have. We don't know how busy we're going to be. Let's cut it in half. So let's take the 6 most popular cocktails. That's our cocktail menu for the first week. Let's see what happens. First day, people are like, where's this? I'm like, are you fucking serious with me? It's like, come on. Like, is this the most important thing in your life? Is getting one cocktail? Like, come on. There's a pandemic going on, and it's like you can't get your one cocktail. It's like, and then we make it. That's what we say behind our masks. But I was like, that's a big thing with us is like, if we can possibly do something, we're going to do it. And hopefully we can discuss. For me, that's a huge thing. Is like, is the whole service aspect with guests. But we'll get to that later. I would think, hopefully. It's weird. It's like, each place is subtly different, and you just kind of apply the concept to it. Like Fish Nor Fowl, we change stuff all the time. Meat and potatoes, less so. Butcher changes more in the summertime than the wintertime. And poulet is like, poulet is wine. So that's a whole different game.
Yeah, we've talked to a couple of people that are in the wine industry. Either they own a wine shop or like a winery, and that is just one game that I have so little knowledge in, and it is a hard one to get a grasp on, just because of how things are made, where they come from, just everything about it. It's not easy, and I give props to everybody that is well versed in the wine world. That is for sure.
How much research goes into just like all the different drinks that you guys make and all of that?
And that's why I lean heavily on the bar teams. I mean, they're there with the guests every day. So meat and potatoes, the drinks are going to be different than butcher. We had a big internal discussion about like, do we want a Manhattan to be exactly the same at each place? A Manhattan at pork is the same as meat, is the same as butcher, is the same as taco, is the same. And like, I don't think we do, because, the whole, bar personality is slightly different. As long as the bartenders at each restaurant make that, if you just go in and say, I want a Manhattan, how do you, what do you want? It's like, your way. One place would be, okay, let's make it with rye and Punta Mez and cherries, and the other place is going to make it with, Dolan and bourbon, or, I'm just pulling this out of my head, but, it's just like, I think they should be subtly different, as long as they're the same. And I lost track of what the question was.
Oh, just about like how much research goes into just all the drinks you make.
Each place is different, and each bartender's different. Meat and potatoes, they're really creative. They're like, hey, let's take this strong flavor and add some stuff to it. The bartenders at Butcher are like, here's a cocktail from like 1920. Let's read, because that's how those guys are. They like, let's tweak it a little bit, and then it comes out like this. Me personally, I have a couple of books that I think I've tried. Like, I have a Trader Vic's book from like the 60s, and it's like 400 pages. And when I'm running out of stuff to do, it's like, I need a gin drink, so let's open it, and like there's 200 gin cocktails in there. Let's try that one with those flavors and make it exactly how it was in Trader Vic's. It's like, wow, that kind of sucks. Can I save it? No. Okay, then I just put a big X in the book. It's like, no, I can save that, and then we tweak it, and then it goes on the menu. But like I said, it's like I only really deal with two of the cocktail lists, which is at poulet and fish when it's open. Everything else, the bar team there is strong enough to do that. How much research they do, again, it depends on this. Pork and beans is like giant flavors. You're dealing with, like, paraphrasing here, but like Jim Beam peach and lemonade and iced tea. So you're making like an Arnold Palmer. It sounds like, okay, who cares? But it's delicious. The amount of work that goes into a butcher cocktail is much more, because you're dealing with, some Amaro no one's ever heard of, and versus this, Sagamore cognac cask rye, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, it's just different. And that's why I think the smartest thing I've done is like, you guys do the drinks, if you're unsure about something, yeah, I can, we can tweak it a little bit, but, I want you guys to do it. Gaijin is going to be a little different because I'm a huge gin guy. We're kind of in menu development on that. Gaijin is going to be half Japanese whiskey and half gin, probably mostly Japanese gin. So I probably want to take the lead on that one, but we'll see where it goes. There's a Gaijin's going to be tiny, maybe the staff of like 4 or 5 total, kitchen in front of the house. So it's going to be, we've hand selected the people that are going to be there. So it's going to be fun to develop that menu.
So speaking of hand selection, one of the things I've been wondering about is, so like what is the hiring process? So when you go into like an interview, I'd imagine it's probably different than other interviews where you're not just asking, what are your strengths and weaknesses, but like more talking about like, how, like what kind of backgrounds, in mixing and all that. And so I was just wondering if you could kind of elaborate on that full process, because like from my perspective, all I know is that Mike's hard lemonades are tasty. So I'm like the opposite when it comes to knowing a lot about this kind of stuff.
Yeah, the thing is, it's like, for me, it used to be like, how much technical stuff do you know? If I interview people, which there's so many layers to the interview process with us. If it's going to be for a bar lead, then I'll be involved. But if it's for a bartender, the most important thing for me is questions like, what's the most important thing in the bar experience? And if it's going to be like, me making crazy drinks and being on a pedestal, I'm like, yeah, no. It's got to be like, can you take care of the guy who's ordering $50 glasses of whiskey exactly the same as the guy who wants Mike's hard lemonade? Because they're the same. For me, the most important thing is like, you got to be able to take care of guests. And that was beaten into me by Todd Thrasher, 10 years ago or whatever it was. It's like, we were at PX, which at that time was like, one of the big speakeasies in the country. And, you're by yourself. And it's like, it's one of those things is like, the most important thing is taking care of the guests. And that's it. And, for me, I'm like, so classically driven cocktail now is like, the drink I most likely will order cocktail wise, unless it's a glass of whiskey, is a martini. And, you have to ask the right questions, but it's like, I just want to be taken care of, that you're a guest. I'm a guest in your bar. And you have to make everyone feel comfortable, whether it's Mike's Hard Lemonade, because too often people are like, fuck that guy. I don't care about that. So that's the most important thing for me is like, would be those questions. And also like, okay, what do you like to drink? And if it's going to be like, I'm vodka soda, I'm like, well, how about if you and I go out, what are you going to drink? And if it's vodka soda again, and be like, I don't know if you have the interest to do this. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's just like, if you're working at a bar like Butcher, you better have a little more interest in vodka soda because, you basically get whatever you wanted to work with at Butcher. I just want to be taken care of. Like my friend Caleb, who owns Kelly's, which is dive bar in my neighborhood. You go in there and it's like, if it's at midnight, it's usually like Slayer playing real loud. And, Caleb he's a gruff individual, but why I think Caleb's great is I drink gin and tonics when I'm there, and he knows I hate straws, so I don't get straws. I can walk in there, and I haven't been there in 4 months because of COVID, and Caleb was bitching it through a friend of mine at me because I haven't been in there. If I walk in there after 4 months, I'm going to get a gin and tonic. I don't even have to ask for it, and it's not going to have a straw. That's, that's a small microcosm of service, but that's kind of what I look for in a bartender is that, those little things. And a lot of people can make good drinks, but they can make good drinks and piss you off because they're so pretentious about it.
That's fair. I mean, being from, I would say I'm definitely from the younger generation, and you go out sometimes, you and your friends, you go to a bar and you say, hey, can I get a shot of Fireball as an example, a drink that's, I would say, looked down upon by most just because it is, it's cheaper. It's just like a cinnamon flavored whiskey. You definitely know when you're at the right bar, when you don't get that pretentious feeling, or when, you're welcome with open arms. Cause I've definitely had that happen to me before. Just depending on what you drink, you get a different reaction depending on where you're at. So I think that's one great thing to distill in, and everybody in the food industry is just, just be respectful of what everyone's ordering. And you mentioned that and I appreciate it.
Yeah. It's like my mom, we'd go to dinner and she's like, I just want a glass of Kendall Jackson Chardonnay. And everyone's like, what your son does for a living, right? She's like, yeah, but that's what I want. It's like, okay, what's wrong with that? It's like, if that's what she wants to drink, who cares?
Yeah. Everybody has different palates. So you had mentioned that, everything at Butcher is hand selected. So you can't just go in and say, I want a whiskey, or I just want, a vodka soda or something. Cause you can customize it or tailor it to the person that is going there. So me, myself, I've been expanding into, dark spirits lately. I would say over the last 3 years, I've really started to go down the Irish whiskey, rabbit hole. What would you recommend for someone like me who's trying to become a little bit more adventurous? If I were to stop by Butcher and Rye, what would
the original Irish whiskey was a single pot still. It's a specific way of making it. It's kind of loosely based, or loosely is the correct word about moonshine. The English were taxing malted barley, but only malted, not unmalted. So the Irish is like, for some reason, we can still make whiskey with half of it being unmalted barley. And, as a wine guy, when I was reading these, I had never had, my girl, Melissa's like, oh, just drink Irish. I'm like, I don't like Jameson. I don't like, Power, well, I love Powers now, but I was like, there's something about it I just don't like. But then, reading about it, I was like, okay, I get it. So the single pot stills are kind of like the classic Irish whiskey. It's 3 times pot stilled. That unmalted barley is going to give you a lot of white wine flavors like green pear and unripe melon and green apple and stuff like that. So as a wine guy, I'm like, oh, I can get down with that. It's not chill filtered. It's really viscous and it's the original classic style Irish whiskey. The stuff I have at my house now, Teeling's single pot still. I have 3 different Powers expressions at home. They're not crazy expensive. Currently doing a good job on the 3 Swallows Powers right now. As we have this conversation, probably a little much than I should have, but that's okay.
That's fine.
So, if you get if you can find Teeling single pot still or Powers, the 3 Swallow, they're probably $60 a bottle. It's, it's not cheap, but it gets the point across quick because it's delicious. And how my brain works is why is this a thing? I understand why it's a thing. And then I can taste the production methods in there. And I was like, holy shit, I just want to drink this constantly. And here we are. It's, Powers, Teelings, Redbreast, any of the spots, green spot, yellow spot. I mean, those, it comes at a little bit of a price, but, just throwing it in the glass with an ice cube, man, it's perfect.
Well worth it. So you've been with Butcher and Rye, and you've been the beverage director for some time now. What are some of your favorite parts about your job, and what are some of your least favorite parts about working specifically where you are?
My favorite parts, actually training staff is usually my favorite. They're all pretty skilled, but it's if you can take, doing a wine lecture and it's here's 4 different Pinot Noirs from 4 different parts of the world. Here's why they're different. And then the light bulb goes off in half of them. That to me is magic. I love that. At Butcher, the first thing we did coming back from COVID, we had a big team meeting. The whole staff was there. And why don't you do a little hour staff training? I was like, I'm just going to grab every bottle of Irish. We took down the entire wall. It's 60 milk crates of bottles that we had in our liquor room. We were a little concerned about looting. It was a lot of okay, let's just reorganize it. So I just went through milk crates and I found 4 bottles of Irish and pulled up a bar stool, and the whole staff was there. It was there's no printed material. I'm like, no, hell no, there's not printed material. And at 10 o'clock in the morning, we're all just knocking out Irish whiskeys. I think we ended up at 6 different Irish whiskeys. We were drinking the Powers John Lane, the Powers 3 Swallows, Teeling's pot still. I think I found there's here's a story about Irish. This is why it's cool, and totally unscripted, and totally is just I'm just going to talk to you guys about this. It's probably the best feeling in the world. The most knowledgeable, possibly jaded bar staff there is holy shit, this was cool, and they're asking me all kinds of questions. We're having a super high level conversation about this. So I was like, yeah, this is pretty cool. Which a year ago I'd be I don't really drink whiskey. I drink Johnny Walker Green. That's the only whiskey I drink. And now it's there's 4 bottles of gin in my house and 50 bottles of whiskey now, which before that was the opposite.
No, it sounds like a great experience, and you've been growing your whiskey collection. What spirit do you think you'll get into next?
It's tough. I mean, for me, I mean, if you look at Irish or if you look at whiskey, I mean, it's 5 countries and something like that. I mean, gin has always been there. Mezcal, I went all the way through the portal on that. I need to go back into it. I mean, I love mezcal, but you kind of got to drink it with people. I've been down the Calvados wormhole. The only thing that's really left that I haven't really kind of explored is brandy, cognac, Armagnac, that kind of thing. I drink it, I like it. That's probably the only thing that I don't really have a ton of experience in, as far as like geeking out on it. I know about it, but it's who knows? I mean, I've kind of been drinking professionally for 30 plus years. Is like, I don't know how much left there is. Now, it's just funny as I tell you about all this badass shit I have in my house. I'm looking at a bottle of Gilby's, a plastic handle of Gilby's gin that's staring at me in my face that a friend of mine gave me, and I still have Gilby's and tonics too.
So speaking of spirits, we have a question that we like to ask all our podcasts. You have a lot of restaurants, so we were wondering if any of your restaurants are haunted.
Not that I'm aware of. I don't think so. All our places are old. But I don't know of any ghost stories. There's been like, why did that just happen? But, I don't know if I would classify it as that.
No, that's fine. And that's something we find, though, is that like a lot of the restaurants that are, staples within their community, they have been around for, 50, 60, upwards of maybe even 100 years. So that's always just like a fun question we love to ask our guests. Do you have any ghost stories from your personal life, maybe not at work, that you'd like to share that you think we'd get a kick out of?
I've had a couple of recurring nightmares, but I don't know if that fits as crazy ghost stories. Yeah, as far as ghosts go, I mean, our house is from the 20s, don't have any ghost stories. Hopefully I'm going to knock on wood about that, but I don't think any of the restaurants do. Restaurant Eve in Virginia, where I worked, allegedly there was something in one of the upstairs rooms that I was like, I don't really believe this. And they were like, oh, if you go up there at night, it's crazy. I'm like, yeah, but I'm not going to go up there at night. That's probably the closest I have to that. I'm only afraid of a few things. I probably think ghosts would be one of those too, but.
What experiences do you draw on now that you're operating, Butcher and the Rye and some of the other restaurants that are in Pittsburgh? What do you think really inspired you or helped you, in your childhood to get where you are now?
It was weird. Like our family, both my mom and my dad were workaholics, probably to the detriment of family life. Like I'm a restaurant guy, so it's just like, you understand you're giving up relationships and your family and your weekends and all that. And, COVID is a whole different deal. But, I think that it was just driven into me. Like my parents were working all the time. I think if you want to succeed in the restaurant business, you got to be prepared to do that. I realize now that if I manage my time better, I can be more successful at what I have to do. But before I'd be like, okay, there's, 128 hours in a week or whatever. Let's try to get, especially in the kitchen, it was just like working crazy hours just because I thought, it would make me better or make the team better. That's probably the biggest thing with me was that. I've never been a good delegator, but, as I get older and potentially more wise is like, I have to delegate all this stuff. I can't write 6 cocktail menus all the time because it's not going to work. So you have to trust, and I think the trust factor for your team and developing them, and show them like, okay, this is a better way to do this, or that's a big thing. Because you can't do it all when you can't do it all.
So what inspired the name of Butcher and the Rye?
Just kind of the whole, gastropubbish, it's basically, it is from Catcher in the Rye. That's what the inspiration came from, but it's like, it's a meat heavy menu because you're drinking all the whiskeys. That's, basically exactly how it came from. It's not a more complicated answer than that.
Yeah, we saw the name, and obviously being Catcher in the Rye is a book that most youths read in America. That was the first thing that came to my mind was, okay, yeah, Catcher in the Rye, Butcher in the Rye, I can see it, it's one of those things. And obviously being that, you're famous for, whiskey, it's like, all right, rye, it's double play on the word rye there. I thought it was pretty clever, honestly.
I mean, Shep is really good at that stuff. It's like, people are like, well, what about this? What about that? I was like, just stick with the concept. Trust me, it's going to make your life much easier and you'll be more successful. It's a lot of fun working with him because, it's just like, oh, we're going to do this. I'm like, okay, that's cool. That's fun. He pushes me to do this. Let's think out of the box. It makes it easier, and it's a lot more fun because, you get pushed and like, wow, I can't believe we just did this in a week or whatever. There's been a couple stories of like, wow, we need to change the entire cocktail menu at Fish or Fowl in a week. Can we do it? I'm like, hell yeah, or we need to add a wine list by tomorrow. So, it's fun. It's fun doing that stuff. I was like, I can't believe we just added an entire wine list in a day.
Where do you start when you need to completely revamp a wine list or like a menu or something like that? Like what are the first like cornerstones that go into building that list?
For the first thing is like, okay, how much money are we going to spend at this? And then you work backwards. Like, okay, how many reds, how many whites, how many sparkling, how many by the glass? And then we need this many of each, and you just work backwards. And it's like, okay, this menu is more red heavy, so we're going to be 70% red, 30% white. And you just kind of, if it's Fish or Fowl, when we did that we could do whatever we wanted. There was no rules. So we're like, German Pinot Noir, all this crazy stuff. And it worked. So you have to you got to be financially savvy to do this, but, also like, spreadsheets are key. Is like, okay, we're going to have 40 red wines. You got to have everything represented. You got to have something for the cab, your dad that drinks cab, plus, the women that are going to come in and want to drink a light red or something like that, or the dudes that are going to come in and drink the light red, and you just kind of engineer it like that. I mean, it's a skill that goes into it. And, having basically written wine lists for the last 20 years of my life, it's like, being organized is key. And basically I'll just take a Google Doc and like, okay, I want 40 reds, and you just put light, Italian, rosé, blah, 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 blah. And then you just type over it and approximate cost. And you're like, okay, can we do this? It's going to cost this. And then, hey, Togo, can we do this? He's like, yeah, sure, let's do it. And then you pull the trigger and you do it, and then it's there the next day. That was fun. That was crazy. And all my friends are like, you did what? You just overnight? I'm like, yeah, it was pretty cool.
That's a pretty unique experience. I've never heard of somebody doing something that radical that quickly. And it seems like you had pretty good results with it as well. So that's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. But yeah, I like the challenge that I get working, with this group, because, as you said earlier, every concept is unique and different, and it makes it easier, but also makes it harder because, you can be like, let's just fall back on some classics, but it's like, no, you don't really want to do that because, we're expected to push the envelope, and, kind of got to have to.
So what's your next adventure? Do you have anything in mind?
I'm kind of risk adverse. Like I said, we just stay home with a dog. This isn't going to be an adventure for most of your listening audience, but like, I've never been good at grills. I can, as someone who spent most of my life in the kitchen, I've never been good at grilling stuff. So I bought a Weber during this whole quarantine thing, and I'm like smoking this and smoking that. It's like, it's cool. Is that an adventure? I mean, not really. It's like, I'm not going to jump out of an airplane or anything like that. I don't know. There's professionally, who knows? I mean, I'm up in the air if I want to continue taking this MS test. I don't know. Right now, it's like COVID changes everything. It's like, you can't really there's no adventures right now. I mean, what do you guys thinking for adventures? Like, I'm not going, we're not going far. It's like, I don't even know. I don't even know how to answer that because, we might not even be able to leave our house in a week.
To your point, I would say grilling is an adventure. I mean, anything that takes time to, hone in on a skill. I mean, that's an adventure in itself. So I thought that was a great answer. But Dan, what do you think? What is your next adventure?
Well, my next adventure, I mean, kind of like you, I'm just a workaholic. So just continue grinding it out with our startup, is work. That is my adventure summed in one sentence.
Yeah, that was going to be mine as well. So, so for the listeners, you guys might already know that we work for Winhouse Software, a software company in Northwest Ohio, specifically in the Toledo region. But we do custom software solutions for anything and everything. So websites, mobile applications, data and analytics dashboards. So that's what we've been doing. And as far as like pushing the envelope, I would say we're doing a pretty good job for a startup, just because we're always thinking of new and creative ideas that we can create as our own pet projects, but also how do we provide the best experience for customers. And we do also work in the the latest frameworks like React Native, and then we also do serverless. Our backends are serverless with just fast response rates. And we're really trying to get away from what used to be software and trying to like get into what is going to be technology. So that's always that's what probably always going to be our adventure. It's just
for sure. That, and also we invented a really fun game where it's like Foursquare, except you use your feet, and it's also a mixture of that and volleyball. That's a pretty fun adventure too.
So anybody that's played soccer, you've probably played this in high school. It's called soccer tennis. So you're playing tennis, but with your feet, and you play usually doubles. So you get one bounce, and you got to juggle the ball and send it over. But I don't know. That's really what we've been up to when we're not working.
I thought it would be cool that I was going to write a book. So I did a chapter, and I was like, oh, this is cool. But then I go back to work. I was like, I don't have time for this. And now I was just like, I got nothing but time. So who knows? Maybe I'll do that again. I don't know. That'd be an adventure. It'd be so weird as to do a book is you put it out there and people are like, yeah, this sucks. And come on, man. So who knows? That's I don't know. It would be like a cookbook / wine book, but with heavy gin and heavy Irish whiskey in it. So I don't know how much market that would be. Tens of people would line up to buy that book.
No, no. I mean, just doing it is half the battle. I feel like a lot of people, it's just starting it is the hardest part. And then once you get your groove, and I guess a big thing to be worried about is, all the time that goes into it. But I mean, if it's something you're passionate about, I'm sure it'll definitely show its way in the book.
No, it's funny. It's I've spent, half my life cooking and half my life in wine. And it's okay. When I wrote a chapter, is all the cool shit that's happened to me while eating burgers and drinking stupid wine. And I wrote this chapter, and it took me a couple of days. And I hey, read this. That's badass. You should keep doing this. And I'm eh. And then I have to go back to work. It's but now it's who knows when, I'm going to be doing anything else again. So maybe I'll cue that up again tomorrow. I don't know. I'm getting texts about a tea time tomorrow morning. So I guess I'm not writing tomorrow either.
So you mentioned the book and, where you've been in the past and how you got in the industry. So what is something that you failed at and then something that you were able to overcome?
I did give some thought to that. I think that being a kitchen person and being very I'm very antisocial. I'm very shy. I don't like to talk to people, even though I've been yammering on about this. It was very difficult for me to switch from kitchen where I'm not going to go talk to you to the front and maintain a level of hospitality and like taking care of people. There's some people that are just like gracious and, you know, so I've had to work at it, and it would be to the point it's like, you know, how my body language was affecting people and that. So I failed at it miserably in the beginning because I was so awkward. You know, when I'm in a dining room and I have to talk to people, I was like, or behind a bar, you know, I just did a shit ton of work on it. It's like, how does me being, you know, reluctant to talk to people, how does that make them feel? And, you know, how can I overcome this? And how can I make everyone that comes in feel welcome? You know, and it's not something that, you know, there's a couple people that, you know, I look up to in regards to that they just do it naturally. And for me, I just have to work at it. And, you know, I think accepting that was like, okay, I failed at it miserably in the beginning because I was so awkward. But then, you know, when you learn how to talk to people, when you have confidence, and all the main goal is to make them feel welcome and comfortable and have a great time and have great service, you know, whether it's because it's an innate feeling that I have or it's something that I train myself to do, you know, that for me is in a nutshell, it's that. You know, I was terrible at it and then I got really good at it because I put forth the effort. But it's not because, you know, I'm this hospitable person and, you know, I've had to train myself to do that. And, you know, going back to what I said earlier about, all I really care about bar staff is that they're nice to you. You know, I can teach you how to make a martini. I can't teach you how to be, you know, I'm going to beat into you that you have to be nice to people. If you want the Mike's Hard Lemonade, you know, you're the same, you know, they have to be the same person as the guy that comes in and is like, hey, you know, I want 6 bottles of Dom Perignon. They're the same. And, you know, trying to get people to learn that is hard. But, you know, personally, you know, I think the whole service aspect in the beginning was a giant failure. But then realizing like I have to be good at this if I want to continue to stay in the front. You know, and learning how like everything that I do body language wise or how I talk to people or if, you know, I don't look at them in the eye and I'm genuine, you know, it was a giant learning process for me to do that. And I'm not saying I'm putting on an act if you were to come in at, you know, at a bar that I'm at. It's not an act anymore. It's just, you know, I trained myself to be able to do that. And, you know, for me, that's the one thing that's missing from a lot of these crazy cocktail bars that are like getting all the attention. It's like, just fucking be nice to people.
No, yeah, I can definitely relate to that on a personal level. Because me personally, I've grown up not knowing how to talk at all. And so what I ended up doing was I eventually switched to the major of media communication, where you have to talk. And so I really just like pushed myself to learn how to talk effectively and how to like talk like a normal human being. And like being an introvert, that's like one of the hardest things to do is learning how to talk to someone. And so that's like, I think it's definitely a good skill to have, especially because like if you can master that as an introvert, you can accomplish anything.
No, it's funny you say that, like learn how to talk to people is like all the waiters or, you know, people that serve people in the restaurant business, they're like, they feel that they have to come up with this, you know, new speak so people respect them is like, you know, oh, the tuna is, you know, you just come up with this new language on your own is like, no, just talk to people like normal. The first time I went to French Laundry, I was amazed how casual they were speaking. They were speaking to me like I was a person, as opposed to like, you know, some fucking lord in fucking London. It was just like, hey, how are you today? I'm like, I'm good. Aren't you supposed to be asking me, you know? It was really weird. And, you know, that stuck with me too, is like, you know, talk to people like normal human beings, as opposed to like, I have to prove my worth to you as a bartender or a server by making up all this stupid shit. You know, just speak to people in English. But yeah, that's a soapbox that I've had for my whole life.
No, absolutely. I just completely relate.
That's something that I feel like I learned from a young age, being that my dad has been in the food industry for years and years now. I mean, he's done everything, busboy, like, I mean, he's owned restaurants. He started restaurants from scratch. You know, he's been a chef, he's been a bar lead. But yeah, just always trying to, you know, treat people with respect, but then also being approachable and not having that one-sided view that you have to prove yourself. Something that I definitely have gotten from him and I appreciate. Along the same lines, though, why do you think that other people in the business they fail? Why do they fail as a bartender, or why do you think that you know, corporations or organizations fail when rolling out a restaurant?
Business-wise, they're not financially savvy. That's the short answer for that. But I think like on a personal level, you know, Have you guys ever seen the Mr. Mixologist video on YouTube?
I can't say I have. Have you?
I probably have. I've seen a lot of mixologist videos. I don't know.
It's a parody about don't be a douchebag bartender. You should watch it after this. I sometimes will use that as a training video. It's basically don't be a douchebag. That's why I think a lot of bartenders fail. Is like, I gotta be honest with you, the drinks that you're making is like, 10 of them are classics, and that's 90% of the drinks that you make. So just be nice about it, to your point, is like, if you want a Mike's Hard Lemonade, that's what you get. And you get it with a smile. You might not get the conversation that the dude that, wants to geek out about Irish whiskey, but you're not asking for that experience. I think that the people is like, don't be a douchebag and read your guests is like, do they want to talk to you or not? There's so many people that are like, oh, look at me, I can make this crazy cocktail with 28 ingredients and it sucks. But they put themselves on a pedestal. It's like, dude, you're making drinks for people. It's and this isn't to demean the bartending industry. Like, my bartenders at Butcher will probably kill me for saying that, but it's like, they put an incredible amount of effort into it, and hopefully it doesn't come across. The whole quartermaster sommelier's bit is like, if somebody asks you for information, give it to them. If they don't, leave it alone. I think as far as personal people fail is like they want to inject themselves into every experience. And it's like, if one of you guys are going out with, your significant other, do you really want a server or a bartender to like talk to you for 25 minutes about a bunch of bullshit that you're not interested in? That's where people is like, hey, read who you got. If they want information, give it to them. And I think that's why people aren't successful at it is because they don't read that. So that's the stuff that pisses me off. I've had bartenders in Pittsburgh that are like, oh, you can't possibly like that rum. That rum sucks. I'm like, but I'm paying you money for you to tell me something that I tell you that I like sucks. Okay, that's cool. I'm good.
Dude, I would never go back there. If someone said that to my face, I'd be like, yeah, fuck you, I'm out of here.
We don't have to worry about that. So, and I'm okay with that getting out because, that stuff deserves to be kind of punished. But I think that on the personal level, people take themselves too seriously. Is like, the restaurant business is most importantly about taking care of people. And you have to know your shit. But if you're humble about it, it's like, hey, you know what? I don't know the answer to that question. I'm going to find out for you. That's a much better way than like pretentiously talking down to somebody about, the Mike's Hard Lemonade. It's like, dude, that's what I want. I've been in quarantine for 3 months. That's what I want. No, here you go. And I think that's something that gets missed and, kind of pisses me off.
Something that, I've always said is that when you go out to a restaurant or you go out to a bar, it doesn't really matter what they're serving. 90% of what you're going for is the experience. The other 10% is what you consume. And I full-heartedly believe that just because why would I go out and pay someone to make a classic cocktail that I can make at home? It's for the experience. And and I just wanted to share that point because I feel like we share similar views on that. And with that being said, anybody that's wishing to, join the industry or start their own restaurant or something like that, what is some advice that you would give to them along those guidelines of respecting people?
I mean, the restaurant business is always going to be hard. It's probably almost impossible now, given all this stuff. I think the most important thing is I've said this for the last 10 minutes. It's like, you have to take care of your guests. They're not customers, they're guests. And, whether your kitchen, the chef that is like, no, my food is ready when my food's ready is like, yeah, but they've been waiting 45 minutes. That's not good either. It's like the whole thing has to be guest first, kitchen to front to everything. And I think that gets lost. And that was beaten into me, luckily, at a bunch of stages in my career. And a lot of chefs aren't going to want to hear this took too long. It doesn't matter with the experience. If you guys are going in to some place and you get your Mike's Hard Lemonade, you get looked down from the bartender, and then the kitchen takes 45 minutes to take to cook your burger or your wings or whatever you have in a low key place. The place isn't going to make it because people are like, why would I go here? I can go to the next place, get my Mike's Hard Lemonade with a smile, and my food takes 15 minutes. That's service top to bottom. And, the kitchen has a big part of that as well. Is that fully answering your question? I don't know. I just think that, if you're guest first and you're financially savvy enough to make sure that you're getting what you should, a draft beer, you're getting the money you should, and you're probably going to be fine. Because at some point, people just want to be taken care of. People want to be taken care of, and then it's like if you go in, like the douchebag huts aren't really going to fly anymore. The 20-minute cocktail hopefully game is over.
Yeah.
But when I go out and I order a cocktail, it's usually a martini, and it better be. It's 4 ingredients. It better be perfect.
So going off of that, have you ever had any experiences where you just had that one customer who's just being a real, just a big turd, right? And have you ever had to like really bite your tongue and just really just go with it? Like, okay, yep, right? You ever like had that experience before?
Not since last week. You're always going to get that. But, if you have the culture in your restaurant that no matter what happens, you're going to be able to take care of that, it kind of doesn't go away. But you have the people that are like, I want Chardonnay, but I don't want any oak. I'm like, well, have a Chablis. No, I don't like Chablis. That's box wine. I'm like, come on, There's always people that are going to be like, I get this as a wine guy because you're always going to get challenged. Like, oh, I know more than you. I know more than you. I was like, why does it matter? I just want to get you a bottle of wine and get the hell away from your table so you can have dinner. It doesn't have to be a pissing contest. That's usually what happens with me. But you're going to have people that are be like, this wine's corked. It's not. And then you bring another wine that tastes exactly the same. And that probably happened last month. It's like, no, this wine's fine. It's like, well, it tastes exactly the same as the other one. There's always people that are going to do that. I don't even pay attention to it anymore. It was just beating in my head when I was a restaurant. It was like, there's going to be people like that, and you just deal with it, and it goes away. If I could think about it for an hour, I'd probably come up with like, wow, these are the biggest assholes on the planet. That stuff doesn't bother me anymore. And a lot of my staff that are in like a wine tasting group or whatever is like, oh, I had this guy the other day. Is like, yeah, who cares, man? Whatever.
No, yeah. And again, a little about myself. I used to be a tour guide for my university. And so I definitely had my fair share of having to bite my tongue with, you have the parents that are asking all the questions, and then you have the kids asking, the underage kids ask, all right, which bar do I go to, or where are all the parties at? And of course, I have to be like, oh, parties, we have campus activity programming. We have a lot of really fun, adventurous activities there where you get to do non-alcoholic fun. But yes, that's always a fun time trying to reason, just kind of go with it. But so going on to the next question, if you weren't working where you're at right now, what do you think you'd be doing if you had to start from all over again, you had to take a different route? What route would that be?
Can I go back in a time machine?
Yes.
It'd be one of two things: either be a professional golfer or a hedge fund manager.
Okay.
I don't know why those two make sense, but that's usually my answer for that, and it's pretty concrete. I wish that I had taken golf lessons when I was like 13. But the hedge fund manager thing is kind of a joke, but it'd be like, okay, it's cool. I got this, I don't know how to do anything else. I want to kind of branch out and maybe look into doing some distilling or something like that, but I have no idea how to do that. Like zero zip.
Mm-hmm.
So you're pretty good at golf?
No, not really. My handicap's 13, but it's a fake 13. It should be higher, but that's what it is. I'm gonna be a good golfer. This little sin of COVID for sure. Hopefully.
Yeah. I'm like, I can't even hit my driver straight, like I'm lucky if I hit anything relatively close to where I'm supposed to hit it. It's still fun, you get that one hit in where it goes right down the line. You're like, yes, but then every other shot is just going at a 45-degree angle. So it's a good time for me.
So,
I'm bad.
See, you're used to that one shot. I played yesterday. I had none of those shots. I had not one shot that was going to get me to come back today. But I still not one. I still went to the driving range and worked out. I hit balls for an hour and a half today. But yesterday I had not one shot that would have brought me back. That's probably why I drank a lot of gin yesterday.
Just one of those days.
I was like, why do I fucking play this game?
It's addicting though. You just keep coming back for more because you get that one good hit. You're like, oh yes.
Always chasing the dragon.
It's like I'm in the restaurant business. It's like if that's not hard enough, then I got to play golf too as my one thing that I do. Just punch myself in the face all the time is much easier.
All right. So you mentioned that you're from the DC area. What is your favorite hometown restaurant in the area?
In DC or Pittsburgh?
Yeah.
I'll probably have to give you both.
In DC. Yeah, you can give me both, honestly. Yeah.
Actually, no, DC, because here's the thing with DC. So my family has went to DC a few times, and whenever we go there, I don't know if we're just looking in the wrong area, but we cannot find any restaurants anywhere. And so maybe it's just we're in the wrong area. But yes, I would honestly love to know specifically in DC, just for the next time we go out there.
All right, so DC, I gotta say this, and I was prepared for this, but I just changed my answer because I totally spaced on something. There's a French bistro in DC in Dupont Circle called Bistro du Coin. This is no exaggeration. A friend of mine and I, maybe 10 years ago, we're doing the Bev Nap, how many times have we been here thing. We're like, we've been coming here 5 days a week for 8 years. How many times is that? And this is no bullshit. This is how many times we've been there. And it was like over 1,000 times. And we're like, Jesus, how much money have we spent in this place? I was like, Michelle, the owner, is like, do you think we've been here this many? He's like, oh, at least. And then we had like 5 more years before I moved to Pittsburgh. Bistro du Coin is down and dirty French bistro. If they don't know you, you might not have the best time. If you're family, you're going to have the best time. So that unequivocally is my favorite restaurant in DC. Is there restaurants better? Absolutely. But no place that every time I go back to DC, we have to go there. At my 40th birthday there's probably 50 people at a long table in the center of the dining room. Had my 50th birthday there too. It's probably 40, less people are interested in me now. So we moved to Pittsburgh and had Melissa surprise me with that. It's very important that DC has Bistro du Coin because, New York has pastis and things like that, French bistros are super important. And, so that's the answer. It's long-winded, but it is what it is.
That's a good answer. So how long does it take for a customer to move from, a newbie into that French family? How many times did you have to visit before you felt like you were part of the family there?
Day one, because they knew me. But for me, it's like you have to go there and be interested in what they're doing. Have the steak tartare, order wine, do what they want and be nice and, tip decent, and you'll be good. Michelle and the whole staff at Bistro is their family to me, even though I don't live there anymore. I mean, I was there last in December and I texted Michelle, hey, we're going to be there. So he came in on his day off. Yanis, the chef, was there. And we probably had 12 people, and he came down and sat down with us for like 3 hours. And it was like, that level of hospitality, that level of like family, you know, I've seen some shit at that place, like stuff that I can't really talk about because it's not legal.
That's probably the best.
You know, my dog may or may not have been having dinner with us one night at that place. And, you know, it's just like, it's, you know, it's the place that I've felt most welcome at. And I know Michelle for, you know, 25 years at this point, you know, but the level of service that you get if you're family there, you know, it's great. But, you know, you might not get, you know, if you guys were to go there tomorrow, it might be like, okay, you know, come back a couple more times. But once you're family, it's fantastic. So it's, you know, it's those places are hard to describe because, you know, I've said service, but it's like, you know, you can have shitty service there. You can have dishes that are like, well, that I've had it better last time. But it's the place that I've been to over 1,000 times that I'm not making, that's not an exaggeration. You know, I've been there like 4 times in a day. You know, so that restaurant, that style of restaurant is important in so many cities in this country. You know, you can't say enough about it. I wish I could say more, but you know, I can't because it's illegal.
So it sounds like you have a very close relationship with your dog. So what is your dog's name and what kind of dog is it?
My dog's name is Dutch. He's looking at me now. He's a chocolate lab border collie mix. He's about 60 pounds. The cat beats the hell out of him. That's about it. He's 6 years old. He doesn't drink. The cat drinks. The dog doesn't. I was always a cat person until I wasn't, and now I was like, yeah, the dog is my guy.
Man's best friend.
I wasn't prepared for the dog question. It wasn't in the script.
That's fair. But one thing that is in the script, is there a hangover recipe in your opinion?
Oh, yeah. So you got to think about that. It used to be like when I was 20 or even younger, you know, illegally drinking too much Budweiser from my parents. It used to be like you get Lipton iced tea and you do like 6 scoops versus 3. And then you drink that, but you know, your body's young, you can deal with it. I mean, for me now, it's like I have to drink the most garbage or eat the most garbage food in the world. So a proper Philly cheesesteak, like Pat style with whiz, that's kind of my hangover cure right now. My friend Dave is from Philly. He has a place that does proper Philly cheesesteaks, Pizzeria David, or Davide, however he pronounces it. That's a good hangover cure, but I'm also of the old school mindset that you have to suffer so you don't do it again. And that doesn't work. So if I'm like super hungover, I try to start drinking again and like, well, let's have a gin and tonic. Maybe that's going to make it better. And, you know, as you get older, you can't deal with this as much anymore. So, you know, if you're ripping hungover and you're like, oh, I'm just going to have a gin and tonic, it'll fix everything. It's like, no, you're half in the tank and you're hungover, and that makes it worse. As a cure for like, do we have a COVID-like cure for hangovers? No. Cheesesteaks, yes. Garbage food is probably the best way to go.
So, you know, it would be a fun idea for a future restaurant. I don't know how this probably wouldn't fit with your branding with the other restaurants, but so just you gotta hear me out. So making a hangover themed restaurant where you make very greasy hangover-esque food.
I mean, when Chef hears it, he's probably going to be like, okay, let's do it. You know, I think we'll be on the menu. Cheesesteaks, sausage, egg, and biscuits. That'd be a good thing. It's hard to say. Is like my hangovers right now. If I had a hangover, which to be honest with you has been a lot recently, you know, I just kind of like, you know, let's have that first whiskey at 10 o'clock in the morning or something like that to see if it works. It never does. But I wouldn't be surprised if like hey, let's do a menu where it's going to be like it's hangover food, Pork and beans is kind of like that. There's pimento cheese, which I would crush, brisket. Oh, thanks so much for your time. Look forward to speaking with you guys soon.
Oh, absolutely.
Fatty type things. I mean, that's kind of where you want to be with that.
Absolutely.
So we're on the topic now of more fun questions. Is there one place that you'd like to go in the future, and why?
Honestly, I would love to go to Ireland and go to a bunch of the distilleries: Powers, Teelings, Dingle, Redbreast, that kind of thing. I've not spent a ton. I've spent the last 15 years of my life in wineries, in and out of wineries. I haven't spent as much time in distilleries, except, gin distilleries, yes, because there's a bunch of them in Pittsburgh. But I would love to go to Ireland to play golf, and also to let's go to Powers, let's go to Teelings, and, try to get private appointments where it's talk to me for real about pot still and the history and that, that's my answer for that unequivocally. I could see some golf in, but you get your learn on too, because pot still it's a beautiful product.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds like that'd be a good time. So do you have any advice that you'd like to give to anyone about just being in this industry, or any advice you'd like to give anyone?
To get into the industry, learn how to be nice to people. If you're going to be a bartender, learn how to make a martini, learn how to make a Manhattan, learn how to make an old fashioned. At some point, they will be as good as you can make them, because they're quite simple drinks. But if you can make an old fashioned that isn't full of shit, you're going to make people happy. But again, learn how to be nice to people, learn your product, know your menu. That's how you be successful in the front, and in the back is don't cut any corners, do what you got to do in the back, and, make sure your food is seasoned and, it comes out in a proper, timely manner, because, waiting 45 minutes for stuff isn't fun either. It's the restaurant business it's hard, but, if you focus on the right things, it can be pretty easy.
Right on. And I guess one of my last questions is, what is the most thrill-seeking thing that you've ever done?
I struggled with that one. It's probably been drinking related. How much can we drink for 36 hours straight? It's probably been a lot of that. I got no answer for that. I seriously don't. I'm not jumping out of airplanes, like I said. I don't like to drive fast. Certainly not going to be on a motorcycle. It's kind of a boring person. I don't know how to answer that. Hopefully you guys can lead me into something that'll sound exciting, so the viewers will be like, wow, this guy's not boring as shit. But
I mean, hey, you're going to be making a full book, right? That's pretty awesome.
Maybe.
Let's go with that. Let's go with the thinking I'm going to write a book, and one chapter is going to be about burgers, and people are like, that's stupid. So yeah, maybe that.
But you did mention how much you could drink in 36 hours. What's the record on that?
So there was a thing in DC that we started at Bistro de Quan. Went to a bar next door called Timberlake's after they threw us out. There was the right amount of people there. We went back to my apartment, drank wine on my roof until 10:30 in the morning, went to the Ritz-Carlton for brunch. They refused the service, saying that it was too early, but I'm like, maybe because we're too drunk. Back to my house for champagne and wine until about 2:00 in the afternoon, when everyone kind of just faded off. That was 30. I think that's 36 hours. I don't know. But we have had, card games until 7:00 in the morning before, I'm not, I do dumb shit too. So.
Oh, we all do.
You do dumb shit safely, right?
Yeah. I mean, if we do dumb shit, it's in my house now. and I'm in bed by 11 o'clock if I do dumb shit. But, it's not like before where, we'd have like a party for our tasting group, and then a friend of mine would go outside and fight our tree.
Fight your tree?
Which I don't understand why. Yeah, he tried to fight a tree and he lost.
I bet.
Yeah,
he's pretty strong and hard. It's kind of hard to beat.
It was a 200-year-old tree, and he lost his ass on the fight. I'm certain of that. But yeah, it's drinking. Drinking is pretty funny sometimes. But
Absolutely. No, I can't say I've ever had any fights with trees. Have you, Frankie?
No. I have been playing street hockey before and pushed my friend into a tree, cutting his forehead open. So that was probably the extent of fighting trees, but that was the tree being on my side. So yeah, that's about it for me.
Don't fight trees with your hands because you're going to lose.
Yeah, use your head.
I'm just like imagining that scene. It makes me giggle.
And when he listens to this, he's going to be pissed off that I put it out there, but at least I didn't use his name, so it's good.
Yeah, that's the most important part. As long as you don't use the name, everything flows.
We're gonna wrap it up here. But lastly, where can people find you, and what is something that they should be looking forward to when your restaurants open up again?
Where can people find me? I mean, usually my stuff during the week is done during the day. It's more administrative. I'm usually at Poulet Blue on weekends, selling wine and, being head busboy. What to look forward to when a place is open. Gaijin is going to be some badass gin drinks. We're trying to take like something as simple as a martini and make it like, holy shit, I can't believe these guys did that. That's what we're looking at. Gaijin's going to be exciting. Coupe de Ville is going to be fun too, but it's going to be more, Coupe de Ville is going to be tough because it's kind of like an adult arcade. So there's bowling alleys, there's all these arcade games and stuff. That's going to be tough given the current environment. We're still looking to open in July, but, with the setback, who knows? But Gaijin is going to be, I'm looking to take gin to some next level stuff. That's it in a nutshell.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, JW, for being on the show. We really appreciate your time, and you shed some light into the Pittsburgh food scene, and we really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks so much for your time. I look forward to speaking with you guys soon.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, After Hours Nation, we hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you'd like to stay updated, you can check out our site at afterhourscast.com. Don't forget to tune in next Tuesday morning for our next episode. After Hours Nation, stay thirsty, my friends.